that was the week that was, week 30 of 2023, where I review the important events of the week just past with Vince McLeod of the Alternative Centre. Hi Vince, thanks for joining me again today. How was the rugby?
Yeah, Bob, the rugby was great fun. It was very one-sided in the end. The All Blacks won 38-7, but it was good entertainment, so I was happy to watch it.
Yay, good game. All right, let's just jump into it. Two alarming pieces of news out of North Korea this week. The first was that Kim Jong-un took the Russian defense minister to an exhibition in honor of the 70th anniversary of their victory over the Americans, which featured North Korea's banned ballistic missiles. What do you see as the underlying motives and agendas here, Vince?
North Korea really wants to show to America and to Japan and to South Korea that it has a nuclear deterrent and that it's happy to use it if they feel like the enemy is encroaching too far on their territory. But really it's just more saber rattling, the sort of thing that we're used to seeing from North Korea. And I don't think it really means that there's any real danger or threat happening anytime soon.
Well, the second and perhaps even more disturbing fact is that North Korea's defense minister warned on Thursday that the docking of a U.S. nuclear ballistic missile submarine in South Korea could fall under the conditions set by Pyongyang to launch a preemptive nuclear strike. Has the West's attack dog lost its teeth?
I think that the problem is that the West is pushing so hard on all fronts against North Korea, trying to strangle them economically as well as having a military blockade against them, that they're probably afraid that they're going to end up the same way that Russia has done and get pushed so far into a corner that they have to attack, otherwise just get strangled by NATO. So I think that as far as North Korea is concerned, I don't think they're really dangerous, but they will be aware that the Americans have pushed them into a corner, and they might be afraid that if they don't take some kind of radical action soon, then they're just going to get strangled as well.
Moving on to the BRICS countries, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa opened their forum on nuclear medicine in Moscow last week. This branch of medicine uses radioactive substances for diagnosis, for instance, for bone scans, thyroid scans, cardiac stress tests, and PET scans. Does this cutting-edge alliance threaten the Western self-image that they are the shining light of progress in the field of medical research?
The West have already lost their advantage in terms of being the leaders in medical research. We've also lost our advantage when it comes to other scientific research. It was just shown earlier this week that South Korea have now figured out how to build a superconductor that works at room temperature, which should lead to an incredible amount of savings in terms of how much electricity is lost just through transmission. But that was already a sign that they're ahead of the West. China has achieved a lot of things ahead of what the West has done, in particular the development of solar panels. So there are many ways, really, in which other countries are now ahead of the West. We've put most of our effort into finance, unfortunately, in just housing and a big Ponzi scheme. And now the payment is really starting to become clear. The cost of it is starting to become evident.
Wow. Well, what are the implications for Western culture of the emergence of this new multipolar and competitive cultural landscape? And how do you expect that the West will respond to the challenges to its global leadership from the BRICS nations? Or perhaps they won't respond.
The West will probably be extremely concerned that they're about to lose the top position in the world. And I wouldn't be at all surprised, not in the least, if forces on the side of the West, such as the President of America, Joe Biden, would launch a preemptive attack on North Korea the same way they did on Iraq in 2003. I think that's entirely within the realm of possibility, especially if North Korea are going to saber rattle the fact that they have nuclear weapons. That's the kind of thing that'll put America even more on edge. So I think, there's a very real chance that America itself would kick something off in the Western Pacific. I think it's a high danger.
Good heavens. What is the world coming to? Well, Sinead OConnor was found dead in her apartment last week. She was 56. Sinead's 17-year-old son committed suicide in January 2022. Apparently, her death is not being treated as suspicious, but an autopsy will be done. What do you think was happening, Vince? Do you think maybe she died of a broken heart?
Seems like she died of probably a drug overdose that was a suicide. I think if you look at her life history, there's a lot about her early life history on Wikipedia. It was quite well known. She's known to be a complex post-traumatic stress disorder sufferer, and that no doubt influenced her behaviour. Some 20 to 25% of CPTSD sufferers end up committing suicide. So she was unfortunately just another one. As you said, of course, her son had already committed suicide a couple of years ago, and it seems like that just a really she inherited a lot of intergenerational trauma that unfortunately some of it got passed down and a lot of damage was done.
Vince, you've written and spoken about the moral dilemmas and psychological challenges that we face in our modern society. You've also advocated for alternative ways of living and healing that are more aligned with our natural and spiritual needs. How do you see the current situation of societal despair that is reflected in the rising rates of suicide and drug overdose and violence?
It relates to me, to my mind, it relates to what Nietzsche used to talk about 150 years ago, which is the fact that now that the Abrahamic God is more or less dead in the West, in the sense that no one really believes in it anymore, then there's no longer a basis for a moral structure, since that Abrahamism had wiped out what existed beforehand. And so what's going to result is nihilism. He said that if we don't find a new spiritual path that can cause us to rise above materialism and nihilism, then we're just going to get dragged into nihilism and animalistic behaviours. I don't think we've ever solved that question that he spoke about. And so what we're seeing, the mass despair that we see in the West at the moment, is just an extension of the same nihilism that led us to World War I, World War II, and the mass consumption of the late 20th century and the confusion of the early 21st century. So I think it's just the same thing. Been going on for 100 years. We've got really no moral basis anymore, and I think that's what's led to despair. I think you saw with Sinead OConnor, her despair led her to experiment with a lot of things, experiment with converting to Islam, for example. So I think that people are really just lost and yet need a new spiritual foundation.
Well, in the midst of our escalating violent crime and hopelessness in New Zealand, our Minister of Justice lost the plot last week, driving drunk, smashing her car, resisting arrest, fleeing the scene, and as a consequence of all this, losing her job. Apparently, she was having mental health issues too. What do you have to say about Kyrie Allen's extraordinary behaviour, Vince?
It definitely was extraordinary behaviour, especially if you think that she is a cabinet minister on $280,000 a year. In theory, she was meant to be one of the 20 most responsible people in the whole country, or at least in charge of the most power. So it really is a massive fall from grace that she behaved like this. She's never going to be back in government again, never back in Parliament again. She's finished, like, as far as her career is concerned. And I'm not sure if this is even the end of it, because she may face potential criminal charges for resisting arrest or for fleeing the scene of a motor vehicle accident. So this might not be the end of it. I think it's just a sign that the Labour Party in general is falling apart, and Chris Hipkins has no real leadership power.
Well, Hipkins said that he handled her situation fairly, but did he really? Was it responsible to allow a mentally ill woman to take control of the justice portfolio and to keep control of it once she showed signs of crumbling under the pressure?
It was foolish. No, it was foolish to do that. If somebody has shown the poor judgment that Kyrie Allen had already shown, and I'm not just talking about, what I'm talking about here specifically is the allegations of bullying her staff, as well as fighting with her girlfriend and other things. I think Hipkins should have realistically taken the portfolio off her a long time ago, and it's a black mark on his judgment that he didn't do that until he was forced to.
Back when Donald Trump took power, I was really disgusted that a bunch of women took to the streets naked and screaming. But you pointed out to me at the time that this was a traditional form of protest amongst women in our culture. And last week I came across an incident in California where a woman was videoed walking naked through the traffic, firing a handgun. So this week has been a week of dramatic and shocking events involving mentally ill women. What's up with all these crazy ladies, Vince?
They're just feeling the pressure of the times. These are crazy times. These are lunatic times. Nobody really knows what's going on. It seems like the Nietzsche thing that I was speaking about earlier has come to a head in the sense that people are so desperate now, they're not willing to just go along with it and hope that we can build civilizations on Mars and on Alpha Centauri and these dreams that we used to follow in the space age. Now we're sort of realizing that we're not really going to get off this planet, and we have to look within. We have to look within ourselves for answers. So I think people are just feeling an extreme amount of despair, and that's natural at this stage in the development cycle, and things will probably change very soon, dramatically change.
Okay, so there's a balance between compassion and safety. The Alternative Centre is highly compassionate, and it believes that people should be met where they are and receive the help that they need. But there are implications here for the safety of the broader society, aren't there? How do you keep your heart open and your head cool when dealing with human suffering and complex decisions, Vince?
This is just the sort of question that the great masters of the old times have answered with an appeal to balance. Confucius used to talk about the golden mean. Buddha spoke about the middle way. Aristotle also used to speak about the golden mean, and really it's just about finding a balance between these two different things. Compassion you can just see as a feminine value, and severity you can see it as a more masculine kind of value. And so really it's just a matter of finding the balance between feminine and masculine, finding the balance on that axis so that you get the best result.
Well, more excellent perspectives today from Vince McLeod of the Alternative Centre. Thank you all for joining us again today on That Was the Week That Was. All the links to the articles discussed today will be below in the description. Please remember to like and subscribe so you never miss a show. And Vince, what a week that was!
Yeah, cheers, Bob. That was probably the most crazy week we've had so far this year, so I look forward to what's happening soon.
The Alt Centre are clown world's good guys. They don't fit into boxes neatly enough to be someone else's tools.